This is the Rugby Ascendant Podcast with Envia Velman and Chris Wyatt.
It's the Rugby Ascendant Podcast. As usual, Chris is here from the United States. He watches more of the rugby than I do, and he's thousands of miles away. So how's it, Chris? How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. I've got another jersey today. I pulled this one out of my closet. You can see what date is on that.
Yeah.
I went to 15 or 16 games in England. It was pretty epic, including I was sitting about 8 rows up when Jean de Villiers' jaw was broken. That was a pretty disappointing part of the game. But when that was a tough game, I almost missed my bus. It was a little complicated getting out of there because it's a park and ride in England. But yeah, it was an epic World Cup. I really enjoyed it. We should have won that one, and we won't go into that.
Yeah, your friend Heineke Meyer was still in charge then. Still wondering what he's going to be up to coming back, or where's he going to? I mean, he's left now, the Houston Sabercats. Wonder what his plans are.
Yeah, I wonder as well. In fact, I didn't have direct contact because I went through the team to reach him, so I don't have a way to contact him. Otherwise, I would just reach out and say, hey, what's going on? I don't know if he even has a gig lined up, but I mean, he's too talented. Somebody will snatch him up. He can fix somebody. He can fix somebody's team.
I've got a sneaking suspicion, based on absolutely bugger all, that Dave Wessels is sort of reorganizing things there from Saru. He's now sort of taken over the job that Rassie used to have, and he's already making plans to get the women sorted out. He's making plans to get the under-20s properly sorted out. I wouldn't be surprised if Heineke Meyer pops up somewhere, in these national structures, sort of as a mentor or something. Anyway.
No, that's probably a good idea. I'd like to see it. Again, I'm a fan. I like the guy.
Yeah, me too. I can get all of him. Let's see if we can make a plan. Find out what his plans are. All right.
In fact, why don't you try that? Maybe the two of us can interview him together, and then we'll put it on both our platforms.
Yeah, good plan. I'll see what I can do. All right. Okay, let's talk about the past weekend's games. Let's start with the second one first, and that was the All Blacks going down to the Pumas in New Zealand. And Wellington, where they haven't won a game since 2018, seems to be a unhappy hunting ground for them. What did you think of that game?
Well, apparently it was a good hunting ground this weekend. Listen, it was 3 a.m. when that game began for me. And despite my promise not to watch the game, I watched about the first 15 or 20 minutes, and it didn't look good for the Pumas. They started well. They drove down the field, then they turned it over. And then the All Blacks were out to 10-0 lead. I'm like, okay, time for bed. I get up, and it's 38-30. I'm like, yeah.
I was the same. I had to go to the pharmacy for my wife, and as I walked in, the TV was playing, and I had to look again, double check to make sure that I read the score correctly, and it was actually the Pumas in the lead. But I tell you what, now, the Pumas played exceptionally well. The captain, Pablo Montero, he played, I think, an absolutely brilliant game. He played for the Crusaders in 2022. He knows the New Zealanders, but they had this game worked out. They knew where to strike, and they knew what to do, and they just kept at it. They never gave up. They never let the emotions get in the way like they used to do in the past. That's not to say it's not going to happen this coming weekend. I want to see if they can replicate this form. But I think they deserved this game. They played cleverly, and they were not just barging in and everything. They had a plan, and they stuck to it, and it worked.
Well, I agree with you. I haven't watched the whole game. I have watched some of the highlights, and if I have time this week, I'm doing consulting. If I have time, I'll try to watch it so I can see how it changed for them. But the thing I said about this going in is that before the Springboks played the Wallabies, I said, I think the Springboks, this is their Rugby Championship to lose. However, I can't look past the All Blacks. And I didn't say it, but I'm kind of worried about a loss in Argentina against the Pumas for the Bucks. That was a concern. I haven't said that. That's the first time I've said on air now. But I said it's theirs to lose. After watching the Springboks beat the Wallabies and just wallop them, I said again that this is theirs to lose. And then after seeing how Argentina took apart the All Blacks in that game, it's definitely the Springboks Rugby Championship to lose. But I mean, anything can happen. But right now they can afford to lose a game to the All Blacks at home and still win the Rugby Championship. That's the situation we find ourselves in. So not to get ahead of ourselves, but this is definitely something the Springboks should be able to do this year, is win this darn thing.
The glaring question that jumps out at you after this loss is, what is Scott Robertson up to? Is he up to the job? Basically, that's the first question I would ask. And how safe is his position really? New Zealand's merciless. They don't like losing. They see themselves as the best in the world. See a bit of a bygone era. The jersey that you're wearing, that was basically the highlight of the past decade almost, wasn't it?
Hmm. Well, yeah, and here's the thing: is you're right. They don't like losing, and they really don't like losing at home. That's
Yeah.
yeah. When they don't defend their home turf, heads begin to roll in New Zealand. Literally, I mean, it's like a bunch of Polynesians rocking up on the coast in those paddle boats with pungas. They're coming after you. No, we'll see what happens here, but I expect them to bounce back this week in an angry mood. But they've put themselves on the back foot and the Springboks started on the front foot, and there we are. That's where we find ourselves.
Well, you haven't watched the game much, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. But I think one of the major problems they do have is that fly off. David McKenzie, I don't think is cutting it. They need to get a bit of more. He's all flashy and innovative and all that, but that's not what they need at the moment. I don't know what they're going to do there, but Razor's now said no, he's going to back him, and we'll see how that goes. But that's where it starts. I think if they can sort out the number 10, they're gonna be in a better position.
Well, yeah, but I think the thing that goes to waste. Look, I'm not an All Blacks fan. I would, if they went winless in a season, I would like throw a big party and have a braai. But it is a shame to see the likes of Artie Sevilla, TJ Paranara, and Bowden Barrett's talent wasted. That's kind of sad to see.
In what sense is it wasted?
These guys are just incredible players. I mean, I can't stand the All Blacks, but I recognize great talent,
Yeah.
and I like all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the last thing I want to talk about that quickly is the fact that it took 60 minutes for a scrum, for the first scrum of the match. And the ref actually apologized to the players when they went off for not being able to scrum a bit more. And I mean, John Kirwan was, he had a lot to say about, they want to make the game fast and everything. And I was complaining the game was too fast, looks like. They want more scrums. Can't make up his mind, can he?
Well, the funny thing about this is that the All Blacks thought that they could gain ascendancy by changing their front rowers to get the right point. And it didn't matter because there wasn't a scrum until I've never seen a game. It took 60 minutes to a scrum. I thought after halftime was a long time, but 60 minutes, you got to be scratching your head. That must have been, nobody knocked the ball on. That's pretty impressive.
Right, let's go to the game that we watched and we loved and we worry about and we care about, let's be honest. And that's you called it the walloping. The Springboks walloped the Wallabies. It's a good wordplay there. And it wasn't just a victory. I mean, they really annihilated them. And it could have been much, much worse if the Springboks were able to convert a little bit more or finish off moves. Willie Leroux, for example, clear 10 or 7 points that he just threw away. Little things like that. If this box starts firing on all cylinders, I think, watch out, world, here we come.
Well, that's what I've been saying. I mean, and the talent level's so deep. I mean, this was a risk. We went with Sasha Feinberg, Ogumzulu. Ooh, it's a big risk. We've got Andre Pollard on the bench, and look at that. Other than that horrible shank first kick, Sasha had a brilliant game. That was pretty ugly, that first kick. I'll say it was nerves, but no, this was incredible. And yeah, I agree. Billy really, I was like, what is he doing? He's got two runners, I think maybe even three. I couldn't see on the camera. To his right side. Yeah, two for sure. And he cuts back inside. And it was too far away. It wasn't like he just fall across in a tackle. So I'm not sure what happened there. But this was an incredible game. Let's run down the list here. I think Villy, other than that, had a brilliant game. He distributed the ball very well. I mean, the Springboks kicking game was brilliant again. Jesse Creel was fantastic. I thought Kurtley Arnsey started slow, but, he had a brace of tries and was incredible. And then Sasha Feinberg and Ungwenzula, I would give him a rating of 1 to 10. I would say in this performance, it's a 7.5. People could argue an 8, but I'd say 7.5. It was a good performance. Elric Lowe was lights out. He was charging in there. Fantastic. Peter Steph Dutoy, man, I'll tell you what, if I ever injure my leg, unfortunately, my father's passed. I can't steal one of his muscles to make myself stronger. It's like the $6 million man. We have the technology. We can rebuild him. Peter Steph Dutoy is back. I mean, watching consecutive performances at him, fantastic. And off the bench very quickly, Kanchat Steenekamp, I thought was excellent. Quagga Smith was only there briefly, but had a nice try and had a nice jackal there, if I remember correctly. And Grant Williams came at the 51-minute point, and I think did a very credible job of replacing Cobus Reinach. So I think those were all great performances. It was a fantastic game, but of course, I'm always critical. I'm always analyzing. And the point that I would say is that it could have been 55 to nothing. The Wallabies got walloped, and they could have been embarrassed much more. But the Springboks left a lot of points on the pitch, especially in the first half, not executing inside of 22.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a bit of a worry. It's more of a question of, me maybe getting match fit again and the likes and starting to play together more. we'll see about that. But I wanted to talk to you about the fact that just before the game, or day before the game, they heard that Ruan was going to replace Ergie, was now also injured, and now suddenly Peter Steff had to move to lock. He's played lock before in his life. And Ben Jason Dixon came on at 7, and then the combination of Elrich at 8. I thought that worked exceptionally well, all three of them together as a unit. What was your impressions?
Well, I'd say 100% too. I was a little confused because I had the pregame lineup and had Peter Steff du Toit in a different position. And like, is he wearing that? Because I didn't watch the television announcement. I was doing my announcing on my live and talking to my audience, so I didn't see it come on the screen. And I'm like, is that a 5? What's he? He's going up in the lineup. And I had to quickly adjust and realize that Ben Jason Dixon was, no, this looked, Peter Steff du Toit was more than incredible. He was a world-class lock in that game. He was unbelievable. I mean, you would think that's his regular position. That's how well he played. And then I also thought, I'm high on Ben Jason Dixon. I have been for a long time. Of course, as a Stormers fan, I've seen him play for a while, and I am biased, but the guy's fantastic. And Elric Lowe, people said he wouldn't. Look, I'll tell you what, Quagga Smith may find himself not the guy they want to go to at number 8. I mean, Elric was, and that's another guy. I know he's a Bulls guy, but I've been saying for a long time that he's due, and not only is he due, he was fit to purpose. I mean, that was a fantastic combination. Those guys were incredible. I mean, to me, that's where the game was won, if that makes sense. I mean, those guys really made the difference because it opened up the outside, and it really their move. It was fantastic. I can't say enough superlatives. I thought the three of them were fantastic. They really worked well together.
I'm going to talk about Elrich quickly. I know. Jasper Wiese seems to be close to coming back now. I suppose against the All Blacks, he'll be able to come back. We talked about the fact that looks like he was been banned for life or something. He's been away that long. And I want to talk to you about some of the card decisions in this game that, compare it to Jasper's cards, for example. But when you look at a guy like Jasper and a guy like Elrich, I think it's very clear now that Kocha will now play from the bench. That is his best position, and he's worth the most there to the box. But in terms of Elrich versus Jasper, in fitting into this game plan, the build, the kind of player that they are, what's your thinking?
Well, I think based on history, Jasper is the guy, but based on fitness and coming back, for now, it should be Elric, and when Jasper's available, he should come off the bench and get seasoned again. I think that's a smart move. I think that's really where it should go. But I mean, again, Elric is flexible. We can move him around. He doesn't have to be in that position. He can, of course, 7 is where he normally at. So I think that's right. But yeah, Quagga has worked himself down to the bomb squad, and that's fine. He's fantastic. Yeah, he's worked himself back down. It's fantastic. He's really great there. So I think I think that'll be fine. It'll work great.
Yeah. Now talking about that tackle. Callaway tackling, Kobus Reinach tip tackling, basically, putting it down on his head, arm spin behind his back. I mean, that was a serious injury waiting to happen. And the guy gets 10 minutes on the bench. And after review, it stayed a yellow. Jasper Wiese, for I would think, a less serious transgression, got a 6-match suspension. And it's still ongoing. Doesn't seem right to me, or doesn't it seem comparable or fair to me?
Well, of course it seems right. World Rugby hates South Africa. Don't you know that? It's just exactly right. Now, when you compare it to Wiese's tackle, it is absolutely unjust. In real time, I yelled red card because not only did he lift him and tip tackle him, but he landed on his neck at an awkward angle. And when I watched the replay and then watched the real time replay, not slowed down, I was a little more forgiving because I got the impression, and maybe that's the Timo got, that the player that Callaway was not. He realized he had him above the horizontal and was not trying to put him down his neck. But the movement of all the players resulted in that. But that doesn't matter. I mean, it's a dangerous tackle. It never should have happened. It should have been a red card. And with the 20-minute red card, it shouldn't have been a question. It should have been done. Again, the Wallabies got a gift there, and it is unjust what happened to Jasper Wiese. And this is just another example of how opinions and analysis can ruin a sport. And this is what's going on in World Rugby. This is, look, I mean, I remember I'm in favor of the 20-minute red card. This is a perfect example why one should have been issued. It wouldn't have hurt the Wallabies throughout the game, and it was certainly just to give them a red card. I was shocked that it wasn't a red card in real time. But then, again, watching the replay, I'm not saying it wasn't a red card, but I think I understand why the TMO said it wasn't a red card.
Yeah. Well, talking about cards, we seem to be developing an unhealthy habit of collecting cards. I mean, the only game that we didn't collect a card since the World Cup was the second test against Ireland. We seem to be collecting cards like it's going out of fashion. Discipline becoming a problem, do you think?
No, I think bullshit officiating is the problem. Look, I mean, okay, let's just go through this. Okay. Jesse Creel's yellow card. He wasn't swinging down at the ball. He was in position. It just tipped and went high in the air because it was a rising pass. If it had been a flat pass, it was a try. He didn't know it wasn't going to be a flat pass. So I mean, that's a BS call. You know, I mean, it used to be, go back 10 years ago, every time someone knocked the ball down, it was a yellow card, and I hated that. It ruined rugby. You have to make a judgment call here. But this is poor judgment. Listen, I've already criticized Luke Pierce once this season, and I used to think he was a really good official, but I don't know if he drank from the well of dumbassery or what's going on here. But his officiating has really become crap, and he really had it out for the box. And let me just, while we're talking yellow cards, and I know people are going to say, oh, you're moaning about the officiating, but come on, let's be honest about this officiating. The Wallabies had 3 penalties that he signaled and clearly identified, a line-out penalty, and then 2 penalties inside of 5 meters in a row within 90 seconds. He warned them. The Springboks come back a little while later. There's a penalty at midfield, and then he calls not rolling away when Paranara sat down on Marco van Staden and did this, bouncing on him, and van Staden's trying to roll away. And it was less than 2 seconds if you watch the replay, and they gave him a yellow card after a second penalty. It was at the 22. It didn't stop a try. It didn't stop the flow of the game. If anything, TJ Paranara was going to make him go take a wee because he's bouncing on his belly. This is BS. This is nonsense. Luke Pierce needs a hiding. Someone needs to take World Rugby, take him in the back room, and talk to him about this. That was a BS one. Then the Malcolm Marx's yellow card, I thought that was also pretty weak too, because they said head-to-head. There was no head-to-head contact. We saw the replay. What happened is that Marco came in. There was a tackle, I forget it was, from the right side. That tackle pushed him in further as he was dropping down. But Malcolm went down for the tackle, and he hit him in the chest with his shoulder. And because of the contact from the side, it rode up. And so there was no head-to-head contact. That's just nonsense. I mean, utter nonsense. So, I mean, I'm really, really unhappy about this because it gave the Wallabies a try they never should have had. It should have been a shutout, and I wanted a shutout. 3 yellow cards in the span of 11 minutes. That is BS, 100%.
Just one thing, definitely not TJ Perenara, because there was an All Black in the Wallaby side. It would have been interesting. It was Jake Gordon, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. It's early morning my side. Yeah, thank you for the correction.
Look at the clock in the back there. It's very early for Chris over there. I thought, let me stop you there.
Sorry about that. They'll call me out of that. Definitely wasn't an All Black. That would have been a heck of a performance. I would have transmorgified from New Zealand.
Then was back in time to lead the Haka in Wellington.
Hey, look, those Pacific Islanders, they play for Australia and New Zealand, change their jerseys all the time instead of playing at home. So it could have been the case. No, it wasn't Parnar. Sorry. But I mean, it's just sitting down on him. You could see it. I mean, it was just so obvious. In fact, anything, I think that should be a yellow card for cynical play on the scrum half. There you go.
All right, now talking about the ref, the one thing that I noticed at the end of the game was how tired he was, because that game was quick. I mean, that they just sped it up so much with the use it, and the lineouts and everything else. You could hear the ref being out of breath towards the end of the game. I think it worked well. I think the speeding up of the game was a good idea, and it was well executed. I don't think it was that well executed in New Zealand, to be honest. But in this South Africa-Australia game, it worked well.
No, I would agree. The game was fast-paced, and you could tell that Luke Pierce was pretty tired. I would say that maybe they'd give him a Wallabies jersey and make him an inside center. I mean, that pass he took was pretty lovely during the game. That was funny. I think all the players got a kick out of that too. It didn't really change the pace of what was happening at the moment, but I mean, the ball was passed right to him. He's right there. Anyway, that was pretty funny. But yeah, no, it's look, but the yellow cards are just ridiculous. And here's the other thing. In the first half, every time there was any contact, anytime there was breakdown, the Wallabies should have gotten a card. They committed fouls on every single breakdown. Their entry from the side, playing the 9, hands of the rock, hands on the ground, playing the ball. Every single time. He could have given them 40 penalties in the first half. As it is, I think they got like 14. No, it was 14 at the 61-minute point. And I'm like, that's all the penalties they have? 14? That's ridiculous. They should have a lot more penalties. This was a very ill-disciplined but young Wallaby side, and they weren't punished for their discipline the way they should have been punished. And that's what I'm saying.
All right, the team hasn't been announced yet while we're doing this recording, so you'll see this video after the team has been announced, but it was recorded before it was announced. So yeah, forgive us for our transgression here, but we'll talk about that a bit later. All right, that was enough of the Springboks. I think the Springboks are a juggernaut at the moment. I think they're going to take a lot of stopping. It's not much that can stand in the way. They should wrap this championship up very, very quickly, I hope. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think it's there, like you said, it's theirs to lose.
I agree. It's theirs 100%. And one last thing about this on the team selection, since it hasn't been announced at this early hour, I wouldn't be shocked to see Andre Pollard starting at fly half. I wouldn't be shocked. If Sasha Feinberg Ngumzulu starts at fly half, that's a statement. That's a statement. Now, Andre joked this week with the press about moving to center, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Andre come back as a starter, and I think, and then that's fine. We can say that this was an experiment to see how Sasha did. He did fantastic. We're happy with it, and we're going to look for Sasha for the future there. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Andre back at fly half for this game.
I would be surprised if Sasha was selected against the All Blacks. I wouldn't be that surprised if he's selected against the Wallabies. My feeling. Just give him another run, give him a bit of head, maybe bring Pollard in a bit sooner than this week. Give him a bit more of an extended run towards the end of the game, but let Sasha find his feet, and then when it comes to the All Blacks, you swap them around. Start Pollard and then bring Sasha back on a bit later.
No, that's a fair assessment.
Right, let's talk about the Currie Cup. Round 6, things are heating up a little bit, and as we know, you call all these games. You do a live play-by-play commentary on your channel. The link is in the description down below if you want to go watch it. I'll make sure to include it in a pinned comment as well if you want to go see what Chris does. And then the Cheetahs went down to Cape Town and had another water polo match, I call it. They played rugby in a swimming pool. It's the same as the Bulls did in the beginning of the season. What a nightmare of a game.
It was, and listen, it was tough on the players. They were handling errors, and obviously, I mean, the ball was like a greased pig out there trying to catch a greased pig, and which is something I've done. So, I used to be a farmer. I actually tried to catch a greased pig. There's a competition for that, but it's not easy. They're hard to catch when they're not greased because they're the low frame, close to the ground, and strong legs, and they're fast. But that's how the ball was in Cape Town. It wasn't a storm. It was like being in the midst of a hurricane approach. It was unbelievable. But I was very excited about something. I did the lineup, of course, the pregame announced lineup, and I'm looking down, and that's not Imad Khan. That's Deval Devanaga. Deval Devanaga, who is with Benetton for years now, since 2018, and was a player coach this season, and I didn't know his status. And then if you even look him up on Wikipedia, not exactly the best source, it says was a rugby player, a rugby union player. But here's Deval Devanaga out there, not missing a step, playing scrum half. It was brilliant. I was so excited. Unfortunately, the Stormers, once again, cannot hold a lead. It was sort of sad to see that.
Yeah, we were talking about that. 13-0 up on a very wet field, playing well, but they just got totally dominated everywhere. The Cheetahs had 58% of territory, 54% or 52% possession. And they just had a lot of handling errors. So once that started to get sorted out, they just dominant. They scored 4 tries to 1. 3 of those tries by the forwards, sort of pick and goes, rolling mauls, typical rugby that you should play in wet conditions. And we wondered about the fact that Victor Sekikete and Jandre Rudolph played in Wales for a bit, whether they picked up some pointers over there and knew how to apply it, yeah.
Well, definitely those two. Sekikete, I think, had his best game of the season, and he's a great player, but this was really a fantastic performance in his part. And Jandre Rudolph was just a beast, as he usually is.
Yeah, exactly.
Causing chaos and havoc wherever he goes, and looking like somebody you don't want to run into. It looks like he just came off commando, 2 weeks on commando. He just really is. He looks weathered and worn out there, but up for the task. For me, the disappointment in this game was not the 13-0 lead, losing in a torrential rain pour, which they should have been able to control the game at that point, just go through phases, kill the clock. But what was disappointing for me is that there was no fluidity to the province side. There was no teamwork, if that makes sense. They never gelled in this game. And I don't know if it was because of this, but Justin Geduld went down pretty early in the game, went out of the game. And I know he didn't do much in the previous game, but I was kind of expecting to see him step up, even in this weather. Maybe, it's a great chance for him to slip tackles, that sort of thing. And with him down, and then, of course, the other famous blitzbach, Angelo Davids, he was really non-factor in this game. And I think that really hurt them. And I'll add one more, J.C. Morris. Of all those guys in the backfield, the only guy that actually stepped up in this game was Luke Berger. Luke Berger was everywhere doing everything, and he carried the burden. But Khadul goes out with an injury. JC Mars was non-existent. Damian Marcus had a good game too. I should say that at center. But Angelo Davis just wasn't there. And this was a very disappointing game. But I think Yuri Matia was fantastic off the tee. I got to give him that in that weather. That was brilliant. This kid's a Springbok. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's just a question of when. It's just, he's going to be a future fly half up there. But no, it's disappointing. The season is, I don't say this, but it's, unless they turn around this week, the season's lost for the province side. It's over. But the Bulls remain the class of Currie Cup once again. There they are at the top. Fantastic game against the Griffons. They did a great job at Loftus. You were there for that game.
I was. I make a point of reminding you that I am there every time I pitch up at Loftus. That's where we met. So I have to make sure that I rub it in a little bit. And of course, you're a Storm, I'm a Bull. I like letting you know that on top of the log, 9 tries we scored in that game. But I must be honest, the other side of that coin is we let in 3 tries against the Griffons. That to me was a bit of a shocker.
Yeah, no, the Griffons, they never say die. Didn't I tell you that? We said they weren't going to win this game, but I said you got to watch them. They never give up, and they do have some talent out there. Gershwin Ver didn't have a particularly good game. Coda didn't have a particularly good game, but they still got it done. It was pretty exciting to see them keep their head in the game, and it's the Griffons need some money. And they need a couple of players, and then they can be competitive. Right now, they're not competitive. Right now, they can just shock people at the wrong time. You can't let your guard down against them because they're not as bad as their record would indicate, which is winless. So anyway, but I thought the Bulls defense looked a little suspect on a few plays there. I mean, there's couple eye breaks. I'm like, well, how did that happen? Somebody blew an assignment.
Well, it's not that. I think it's a question of the fact that there's such a makeshift team, almost, if I want to call it that. This has been really the bottom of the barrel kind of players they were selecting. I mean, the 2 centers they're each 36 years old, and I don't know if I was imagining it, but at some stage, Boeta Chamberlain at fly-off played well, I think, and he started bypassing the 2 centers just to speed things up because they were so slow. I don't know if you noticed that. So
I did pick up on that. That was interesting. I noticed that Cornell Hendricks and Lionel Mapu suddenly weren't all that involved. I'm like, is this intentional?
It definitely was intentional. So just before we move on to the next game, your thoughts about Boeta at fly-off?
I think it's fantastic. I was really disappointed that he was getting so little playing time with the Sharks. And I think the Bulls bringing up, look, another great decision by Jake White and the management team up there. Boeta Chamberlain is a great player. It's great to see him there with the loss of one of the fly halves going to Europe. I think it was going to Europe for the Chris Smith went to Europe. That loss so there you go. So I always thought, people used to crap all over Chris Smith, said he was a terrible fly half, and I disagreed. I said he's a good fly half, but it's a loss for the Bulls, and bringing Boeta Chamberlain, I think it's a great decision, and he's performing well. And the guy is really good at his position, but he just moved down the depth chart with the Sharks, which is ironic because the Sharks suck, and he's a good player. And if you're deep on the depth chart and on a sucky team, that really stinks.
Before we talk about the Sharks, which I think we should do next, is I was sat next to a very senior rugby journalist, well-known one. I'm not going to mention his name, but he said to me that Boeta is not up to URC standard from his experience. And he's been a rugby journalist we worked around 32 years now. So he knows what he's talking about. So I was quite interested to see that, to hear that. I asked him why, and he just said, watch. So I'm interested to see how that pans out.
Well, if that's the case, I would argue that maybe the issue he's making is that Boeta's a little soft when it comes to defense.
He's small.
Yeah,
I saw that as
he's
well.
He's a little soft when it comes to defense, and so he's kind of like Mornay Stain was when he first came up with the Bucks. The guy who could kick the lights out, but it was almost like when a player came out, he's like almost stepped out of the way. Oh, that's not my job to tackle. Now he became Mornay Stain, I love him. Became a fantastic all around player as he progressed in his career. But early on, if we're honest, he wasn't very good at defense, and I think that's maybe the knock against Boeta Chamberlain.
Yeah, like I said, the jury is out, but I liked him. He impressed me. He played well, but granted, it was against the Griffons. We'll see how it goes. But now we've talked about that. Let's jump ahead to the Sharks, which was the final game of the weekend. But you brought up the Sharks so nicely. We're talking about Boeta. And the Sharks seem to be sort of staging a bit of a resurgence here. Suddenly they're fifth on the log, 1 point behind the Pumas, and we'll talk about them just now. But things seem to be starting to slowly fall into place there.
Yeah, don't get too excited about the Sharks. uh, look, they've screwed me in my Super Brew pool far too often. So, no, that's the appearance. But again, they played a squad that is probably in worse condition and disarray than the Griffons. The Griquas cannot get out of their own way. They
Mm.
cannot. They can't help themselves. Ill discipline, poor decision making, untimely passes, blown opportunities to get a wide open field, and they drop the ball. They knock it on. Look, it's. I love the Griffins. I mean, if you don't like the Peacock Blues, if you don't like the Teal, then there's something wrong with you. I mean, you don't have to be your team, but you got to feel for them. Anybody that plays on concrete for their home pitch, you got to have a little respect for it.
Sure.
But this season, I mean, they're not the team they were 2 years ago when they went to the final against the Pumas. This is a team that's in disarray, and I'm not sure if they can fix the season. So I'm not going to get too excited about Sharks. If the Sharks play that well against the Bulls or against the Cheetahs, we can have this conversation. But
Mm.
right now, I don't know.
Well,
I think the Griquas the worst team in the competition, even though they don't have the worst record.
it's funny you should mention that because it was 35-7 at halftime. And then the Griquas effectively won the second half 14-5. I mean, it ended 40-21. That gives you another picture altogether, doesn't it?
No, because they left 4 tries on the pitch in the second half. That's the story.
The Sharks or the Griquas.
The Griquas, they really messed it up, you know?
No, but I mean, they
Yeah.
won the second half. They could have actually pulled this game back. It was 35-21 at one stage, and then they started screwing it up, and they got a red card with the last movement. Stupid
Oh
little
my
things
goodness.
like that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That red card was so dumb. How stupid is that? That's at the Hooter too. And it's just a clear charge in, and it was a well-deserved red card. And
I
it's
agree.
unfortunate. They're going to miss him because they rely on him a
Andre
lot.
Sergio, I was actually surprised he didn't stay with the Lions. No, anyway, I think he's going overseas, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm talking under correction.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe he is, but that was very disappointing.
Yeah,
Yep.
very stupid, actually, let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. All right, and then the final one, the one that we all thought was going to be the grudge match, where the Jimmy Stonehouse is going to invade Ellis Park and show the Lions how rugby is played properly after that hiding they got in Nelspruit. And lo and behold, they got another hiding. So, the Lions certainly have to seem to have the Pumas' number.
Yeah, they certainly do. And I'm not in the crowd that said that Jimmy Stonehouse is going to do great at Ellis Park. I was concerned that this would be a high scoring game or a hiding, and it was one of those. It was a hiding. I thought the Pumas would get more points, but again, this is a team that is inconsistent. They're world beaters one week, and then they put this performance on. And maybe it's the Lions have their number. Maybe it's they just inconsistent. I think it might be a combination of the two. The Pumas are not going to win the Currie Cup this year. It's going to be either the Cheetahs or the Bulls, unless someone shocks us late in the season. Not too late. Teams can come together. All you have to do is perform well enough at the end of the season to get to the knockouts, and then when we saw that a couple of years ago when the Pumas shocked. I mean, the most amazing game in Bloemfontein. The Cheetahs thought they were going to the final. They're going to host the final against the Griquas, and the Pumas came back in that second half, an unbelievable performance. But I don't know. The Pumas have that in them, but I don't know. It's just this is very disappointing to see them up and down. Jimmy Stonehouse, if he has any hair left in his head, won't have it for long.
Tell you what, you talk about either the Bulls or the Cheetahs. Don't discount the Lions, huh? This team, for all their ups and downs, they're playing exceptionally good rugby.
No, it's a fair point. I haven't discounted the Lions. I'm just saying that based on performance and based on potential, I think that those other two teams have a good shot at. But look, any team where Yaku Fisaki is the captain, that's a team you got to watch out for. He's a pretty good captain.
Well, we wondered about that. 2 weeks ago, he wasn't a good captain, I don't think. When they lost against, who was it? I can't remember. At Ellis Park. And then last week, he made amends for it. So, yeah. Let's just look quickly about the games upcoming now. It's getting to the serious end of the business now, the half part of it. There's 1.5 rounds. So now they're going to play each of the other teams in the other pools, but only once. And this weekend, it's the Cheetahs against the Sharks, for example. The Bulls against the Pumas. Lots of games coming up now. Things are going to start happening now. Now we're going to see who's really who in this soon.
Well, I look at these for the potential to get a viewing audience on my live broadcast, and I'm looking at this, and there's really maybe the Lions and Province might get me a big audience, but the Griffons and Griquas is going to be me and 6 people when I do that game. Just can't draw much of a crowd for those guys. No, I think you're right. We're coming into the home stretch here. We'll see what happens here. Let's just do a quick prediction. Bulls on the road beat the Pumas, excuse me. Province loses to the Lions on the road. The Cheetahs win at home against the Sharks, and the Griffons win at home against the Griquas. There you go.
Oh, that's a big call, though. Griffons beating the Griquas. That's an interesting one. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, that's probably the only one I'm going out on a limb, but they are at home, and I think that they've played well enough the past few weeks that they could pull it off.
Interesting thing, just briefly, I spoke to Pibe from the Bulls, and he said all the other teams, the URC teams, the Lions, the Sharks, and Province are going to start using the URC players. The Bulls are definitely not going to be doing that. They're going to stick to their Currie Cup squad. Interesting.
Well, that's fine. I mean, there's an argument about how they should do this. I think the bottom line here at this stage is that we've seen that Currie Cup can be scintillating competition without the URC players for the most part, and that's okay. It's nice to see a bunch of young players and see some talent come up. I mean, looking at Sam Francis, Ethan Wenzel, Gershwin Ver, Coda, all these players, this is very exciting to see. And it just gives you more confidence in how dominating Springbok rugby can be for the next several years if it's played out right. So I'm fine. I was a little disappointed not to see more URC players at the beginning of the season, but player safety and player welfare should be paramount. And so I'm okay with that.
All right, Chris, thank you. We've run out of time. Thanks for the time you made for us this morning. So we'll talk again. We'll talk again next we'll have started getting a better picture of who's who. Like I said, who's really leading who. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good point. The Rugby Championship this weekend is a very important weekend because if the Springboks dominate again and come out with a 2 bonus point wins, they're going to be set to win this thing. So, and we'll see what the All Blacks do if they come back with a vengeance or they come back, and win, but don't win convincingly. I think that will set the stage for what's going to happen for the rest of that Rugby Championship.
This is the Rugby Ascendant Podcast with Envia Velman and Chris Wyatt.